What's happening? Happy hump day to all of you. Thanks for joining me. As always, we will get to a Drake Maye update in a minute. We've got some other news that came out this morning. We've got some big news that just came up about 15 minutes ago or so. But before we get to that big news that came out about 15 minutes ago, let's start this off with a $100 super chat from Terry. A $100 super chat. I will be listening but driving, so sending a hashtag hump day super chat, 2 football emojis. Thank you so much, Terry, for that incredible generosity and your unbelievable support to this podcast. Can't say enough about what you do. Thank you again. A $100 super chat to start today from our friend Terry. Thank you so much. Safe travels as you drive around. All right, we'll get to Drake Maye in a minute, but let's start with the news. Just about 10, 15 minutes ago, we found out from Burt Breer that Robert Kraft is one of 9 semifinalists in the contributor category for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Of course, we know that Kraft has been almost desperate to be named as a Hall of Famer by the writers and all the people that vote on that. And so it's a big day for Robert Kraft that he has become one of the 9 semifinalists. Burt Breer wrote a story going back, and you also have the most recent story from ESPN about Kraft and Kraft trying to get into the Hall of Fame and how some people looked at his efforts and kind of criticized those efforts. So a big day, the next step for Robert Kraft as he tries to get into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He's into his 80s. As we know, this is something he wants. So hopefully this is the year for Robert Kraft. Some other news as far as the football team right now. Layden Robinson and Jalen Polk both returned to practice today. So that's good news. Polk seemingly out of the concussion protocol. Robinson hurt his ankle a couple of weeks ago. So both Robinson and Polk were at practice today. Also at practice today was Alex Austin as he starts his clock to come off IR. So you've got Robinson, Polk, and Austin back at practice today. Robert Kraft, one of 9 semifinalists in the contributor category for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So there's your news. But the biggest news of the day is about Drake Maye, the Drake Maye update. We all know Drake Maye left the game against the Jets due to a concussion. He's in the concussion protocol. And Maye today threw at practice. He was allowed to throw at practice. He was not allowed to go beyond 30 minutes at that practice. So he was limited today. And that means that Drake Maye is in phase 3 of the 5-phase concussion protocol. The NFL has these steps that you have to pass before you get back onto the field. There are 5 phases within this protocol, and we now know that Maye is in phase 3. Obviously, he's got to get through 4 and 5 if he wants to play against Tennessee on Sunday. What are the 5 phases of the protocol? Well, you've got symptom-limited activity as phase 1. You've got aerobic exercise as phase 2. And then phase 3, which is the phase that Maye is in right now, is football-specific exercise. The next phase, phase 4, is club-based non-contact drills. Phase 5 is full football activity and being cleared by an independent doctor. Now, what's the difference between phase 3 and phase 4? Why do we know that Maye is in phase 3 and not phase 4? It's because of the 30-minute benchmark. That's how we know. So because Maye is limited to 30 minutes of throwing and practicing today, that means he's in phase 3. Once he is able to do club-based non-contact drills, which again is throwing the football stuff that he did today, but once he is allowed to go beyond the 30 minutes, that means he is in phase 4. And then phase 5 is the full football activity being cleared by the independent doctor. So out of the 5 phases, Maye is in phase 3, and we know that because of that 30-minute time period being the differentiator between phases 3 and 4. So what's all of this mean? Frankly, this is as good as you could have hoped at this point for Maye. I did not think that Maye would be in phase 4 or 5 during the first practice post-concussion. Patriots had Monday off. Yesterday is an off day. So the first time they're at the facility is today. I did not anticipate Maye going out there and being able to go beyond 30 minutes. It would be very rare, if not impossible, to see an NFL player just a couple of days in the concussion protocol out there practicing beyond 30 minutes. So if you were hoping that you'd get good news about Maye today, this is good news. And you could possibly categorize it as very good news because Maye has a chance to play on Sunday. And that was not a given before we found out what he would be able to do today. It was not a given that Maye would have a chance to play Sunday. If Maye was still in phase 1, phase 2, especially if it was phase 1, you would feel like he was most likely going to miss the game against the Titans. Now, of course, all concussions are different, and we don't know how Maye is going to react to what he did today. And that is why you have the phases within the concussion protocol. And that's why the NFL will not allow somebody to return to the game unless they get through all 5 of those phases. It's possible that Maye takes a step back after today, or he stays in phase 3. So we've got to see how he reacts, how his head reacts, how his body reacts. Does he have any kind of symptoms after going out there today and giving the team 30 minutes? How does he react to all of that? Every single concussion is different. We don't know how each body is going to react to each concussion. So we remain patient. But if you look at an example, and I know that NBC Sports Boston threw this up last night, Brock Purdy got concussed. And the very next week, he was out there playing for the 49ers. Now, when Purdy got a concussion, it was on Monday night. So Purdy was concussed on Monday night and was able to get back that next week and play football. So if you compare, and again, everything is different when we talk about concussions, everybody handles them differently physically and how significant those concussions were. But if you wanted to use the Brock Purdy example, which is one of the only examples recently of somebody getting a concussion and playing that next week, if you're going to use the Brock Purdy as the baseline, it's interesting because Purdy was in phase 3 by Thursday of that week, which means this is the exact timeline that Maye is on right now. Yes, I know it's Wednesday. I know it's hump day, but Maye played on Sunday. So Maye played on Sunday, phase 3 by Wednesday. Purdy was concussed on a Monday night. He was phase 3 by Thursday. It's no guarantee, but if you're looking at the recent history and you look at who was able to come back within a week, and you look at Brock Purdy's specific case, he was phase 3 by the first legitimate practice of the week for the Niners. Same situation right now with Maye. So it's not a guarantee, but it certainly makes you feel optimistic that Maye will be back to play against Tennessee. Now, Gerard Mayo said, because some people were wondering, even if Drake Maye was ready to come back to play against Tennessee, would the Patriots start Maye? Or would they be very, very cautious with Maye after this concussion? Mayo met with media today, and Mayo said that if Maye is cleared by the independent doctor, then he is confident, Mayo is confident that Maye will be able to operate the offense, which means if Maye is cleared, Maye is starting on Sunday. Simple as that. And the Patriots, they have absolutely no say within this process. This is the independent doctor who makes that final call. So if we get to Friday and Maye is cleared, we get to Saturday and he's cleared, because he could be cleared on Saturday. If he is cleared before Sunday, we should all expect Maye to be out there starting against the Titans. And I think it's the right call by the Patriots. If they get word from the independent doctor that he's okay to play, then you play him. You play him. If he's able to get back, you play him. This is all about development. This is all about reps. If he is physically okay to play, if he has passed every single test, if he has gone through every single phase, and the independent doctor says he is okay to play football, then you let the young man play football. I am not going to sit him. I am not going to handle him with kid gloves if he is cleared. You get him out there, you get him on the field, you get him to continue to develop and hopefully grow and get better and better. That's the whole point. Now, what happens if Maye is not healthy enough? What happens if Maye does not pass the concussion protocol and cannot play on Sunday? Well, Mayo also told the media today that Joe Milton will back up Jacoby Brissett. Now, they don't have, as of right now, an emergency quarterback. It was interesting that NBC Sports camera guys on Twitter, they posted a video of Hunter Henry kind of working with the quarterbacks. And you might think that's somewhat of a joke, but it might not be somewhat of a joke. Back in, the day, you'd have Jacoby Myers as the emergency quarterback, just in case something happened if you only had two quarterbacks on the roster, because Jacoby played quarterback back in high school. Same thing with Julian Edelman, right? Edelman played quarterback at college at Kent State. So if you had two quarterbacks on the roster and God forbid both of them went down, you could go to Myers or you could go to Edelman, and there's your replacement. And it's not ideal, but it's at least somebody who threw a football consistently, either in high school and or college. So Hunter Henry might be your third quarterback if Maye can't go on Sunday. But the depth chart is Brissett and then Milton. Milton would be one bad hit away from getting into the game against the Titans on Sunday if Maye can't go. By the way, Joe Milton was apparently one of the practice players of the week last week. So he's doing pretty well behind the scenes. Does it mean he's ready? I don't know. I'm not watching him. We're not at practice watching him develop, but at least he's putting in the work. So that is your Drake Maye update. He's in phase 3. He threw the football today for 30 minutes, 2 steps away from being cleared to get back onto the field on Sunday. Mayo said if he is cleared, he will play. He has all the confidence. Mayo has all the confidence in the world that Drake Maye will be capable of running the offense if he is cleared by the independent doctor. So keep your fingers crossed. But I would say, again, amongst a lot of different options as far as news goes with Maye, with a concussion, today was good news. Today was good news for Patriots fans because Maye has a chance. All right, before I go any further, we got a lot to talk about. What should the Patriots do at the deadline? Who could possibly be traded before next Tuesday's deadline? We also have to get into some offensive line thoughts. I want to talk about Vederian Lowe and how he's played when he's been in for the Patriots. But before we get to all of that, couple of favors. And if you've been here before, you know what I'm going to ask. Just give me 30 seconds here. Doesn't take much of your time. Doesn't cost you anything, but it's how we build this podcast. You can give us a like if you're watching on YouTube. You press that thumbs up. That gives us a like. More likes means more eyeballs because YouTube, that algorithm, goes off of engagement. So more eyeballs is more engagement. YouTube will feed it to more people. So don't forget to give us that thumbs up on the YouTube channel as you watch this. You can do that even if you're watching on demand. Don't forget to throw a comment in. How do you feel about Drake Maye in this process? Phase 3. If Drake Maye is given the okay by the doctors, are you good with playing him? Are you good with throwing him out there on Sunday? I am perfectly fine with that if he passes the protocol. I have absolutely no hesitation with that. So throw a comment in. Those likes, those comments, they help us beat that algorithm. And if you're here for the first time or you're here for, I don't know, second, third, 100th time and you still haven't subscribed, help us out doing that. We're trying to get to 5,000 subscribers. We're about 250 away. So don't forget to like, don't forget to comment, don't forget to subscribe. My friends at Spotify, Apple Pods, y'all can rate and review to help us. Let's keep building this podcast up. All right, before we get to trade deadline talk, some of the stuff that's out there, Vitalix jumps in with a $10 super chat. Thank you, Vitalix, for the 10. Might be a Pats homer, but I really hope Kraft gets in. Let's honor these people while they're still alive. Tired of the posthumous flowers, go Pats. I agree with you, Vitalix, and I don't think that makes you a Patriots homer. I think the vast majority of people out there, Patriots fans, not Patriots fans, you'd have to admit, even if you hate to admit it because you hate the Patriots, I still think you have to admit that Kraft certainly deserves to be in the Football Hall of Fame. Certainly deserves that. I mean, 6 Super Bowls, 9 trips. I mean, everything that's been done. I mean, it's just been outrageous. And even more than that, because, of course, he was here through the Parcells stuff. So, he's been to what now? 10 Super Bowls as an owner. His organization has won 6. But even aside from the accolades on the field, Kraft's involvement with the, CBA, making sure that the league didn't strike years and years ago. He played a pivotal role. Don't forget, Jeff Saturday. Remember when he gave Kraft that hug? Kraft played a crucial role in making sure that the league did not strike. And he's also played a big-time role with TV and getting TV contracts done. So I don't think there's any doubt about Kraft's contribution to the game of football, and he should 100% be in the Hall of Fame. And I agree with your point that do it while he's alive. He's in his 80s. We don't know how long of a run Bob's got left here. So if you have the opportunity to put somebody in who has earned it, then put him in there. Let them have their moment. And so I hope Kraft gets in. Thank you again for the 10, Vitalics. It is very much appreciated. All right, let's get to the trading deadline. Who could be available? Let's go through some names. Jonathan Jones, his name's been thrown out there. Kendrick Bourne's name has been thrown out there. Devon Godshaw, his name has been thrown out there. Dietrich Wise is somebody else that's been brought up. Of course, KJ Osborne, with all the stuff that went on the last week or so, his name has been thrown out there. I do not want the Patriots to have a store-wide sale, so to speak. I don't want everybody available, okay? I don't want them to go bananas. And the reason why I don't want a store-wide sale by next Tuesday's trade deadline is because you're trying to establish a culture. You have a new regime, right? You've got the new front office leader. You've got the new head coach. You've got a lot of new on this staff. You are trying to establish a culture. You are trying to build something. And if you just start throwing everybody out the locker room to get a 5th or 6th round pick, it's just, to me, a bad strategy. It's a bad approach. Now, I'm not saying you don't trade people. I'll get to that in a minute. I just don't think it should be universal across the board. Oh, that guy's got 1 year left. That guy got 1 year left. That guy has 2 years left on his contract. Let's just ship him out and get draft picks. I understand the idea of draft capital, and draft picks are certainly important as you're trying to rebuild, but also establishing a culture and having some vet leadership in that locker room. That's so big. I mean, we've seen some of the immaturity, especially in the wide receiver room, right? Immaturity can be the downfall of a rebuild. You have the wrong guys in that locker room, or you have the young guys. They don't know what to say. They don't know how to say it. They don't know how to carry themselves at times. They face adversity on the field, and things go a little bit off the rails. We've seen that with Jalen Polk a little bit. You need veteran leadership. If you want to build this right, you need veteran leadership. You need to establish that culture under Gerard Mayo. And so I wouldn't just be shipping everybody off. I'd also say your number one priority as an organization right now is to help Drake Maye. And that means help within his development. You want to make sure that you're developing him the right way. That's why you get him as many reps as possible. That's why if he clears the concussion protocol, you absolutely play him on Sunday, because you need to continue to develop what you hope is the future of this franchise. So you need to help Maye. And part of that is the development phase for him. And the other part is Maye's out there, and if he's playing well, free agents are going to take note. Brandon Ayuk did not want to come here. Part of the reason why was because of the quarterback situation. It was a tough thing to try to go out and sell one of the top young offensive coordinator prospects on this job, not only because you were missing a bunch offensively at the time, but you were missing the quarterback. And so Drake Maye, every time Maye's out there playing well, it's great news for the Patriots. It's great news for the now, but it's especially great news for the future. So the trade deadline is an opportunity to help Maye by not trading some of these guys. I am not dealing Kendrick Bourne. I'm not moving on from him. I think Bourne is vital to the wide receiver room and the leadership in that room. And I don't know if we would have seen some of the things that we've seen the past couple of weeks if Bourne was on the field since week one. I think Bourne's voice needs to be heard in that room. And he already sent a message after the London game, right? It's not just his vibe. It's the fact that he's been there before. He's gone through things. He called himself out recently. His comments saying, when I went to the Super Bowl, I went out. I did a little too much during that week. I wasn't focused on football. I wasn't focused on getting out there and winning the football game at all times like I should have been. He's had those experiences. He understands where you can kind of slip through the cracks. And I want Bourne's leadership in that room. I don't want Jalen Polk and Javon Baker being the guys, the voices in that room. Tyquan Thornton. No, I want an adult voice that's been here before and somebody that is willing to say what needs to be said. So I am keeping Bourne on this team. I'm also keeping Bourne on this team because I think he's one of your better receivers. And in the name of helping Drake Maye, I want Bourne out there. If you look back, it was October 30th or so, right around then, when we found out that Bourne tore his ACL. So we are at the 1-year mark of Bourne's ACL tear. So I want to give him some weeks here. I want to see 2 weeks, 3 weeks down the road. Does he truly get it going after a full year following the injury? I'm not trading Kendrick Bourne. I'm also not trading Devon Godshaw. Because, again, you want to establish the culture. And part of that is you make sure that Jerod Mayo has some of his quote-unquote guys in the locker room. And there's no doubt that Godshaw is one of Mayo's guys. Mayo was on Godshaw's podcast at the beginning of the season. I don't think Mayo goes on the podcast of just anybody. So they obviously have a really good relationship. I can tell you when I was at camp that Monday, when kind of Judon went a little bananas and they kicked him off the field and he came back, that same day, Drew Rosenhaus, Godshaw's agent, was at Foxborough. I can tell you, I saw the interaction between Godshaw and Jerod Mayo on that day. The agent was right there, Drew Rosenhaus, and I can tell you, it certainly seemed like Godshaw and Mayo enjoyed each other's company, laughing and joking and pushing each other, and then a deal gets done. The extension gets done for Godshaw to stay. Godshaw spoke to Mark Daniels today of Mass Live. He said he's happy. He wants to stay here. He has not heard anything about being traded. His agent has not told him about any talks as far as being traded. Godshaw wants to be here. And Godshaw has played really good football this year. He wasn't great against Jacksonville. But other than that game, he's been really good. He's been a leader on the field. He has called guys on their selfishness off the field. Now, I don't know if that's the best way to do it, going on radio and calling guys selfish, but it tells you that Godshaw is ready to be a leader. He's got his head in the right space. So he's a Mayo guy. He wants to be here. He's happy to be here. He's playing good football. Oh, and by the way, your run defense has been awful. It was better against the Jets on Sunday. We talked about that on Monday. But your run defense has been really bad. If you subtracted Godshaw from this defensive line, I'm telling you, this is not hyperbole. You could give up 200 rushing yards per game. I mean, they were giving that up with Godshaw in there at times. So I don't want to take Godshaw away from that D-line. I want this team to compete, and Godshaw helps you compete. If you take him off that line and you can't stop the run, and it would be even worse without him, it's bad news. Again, you're trying to establish culture. You're trying to establish a competitive football team. Godshaw helps you and plays a crucial role. I'm also keeping Jonathan Jones. Did you notice Did you notice on Sunday, without Jawan Bentley in the locker room playing, right? Did you notice who did the Matthew Slater? Oh, yeah. Did you notice who did that in the locker room after the win on Sunday? It was Jonathan Jones. So if you went from Matthew Slater doing that to Jawan Bentley doing that to Jonathan Jones doing the rally cry celebratory, oh, yeah, after a win, that should tell you that Jones is seen as one of those dudes in that locker room. If he is leading that post-win celebration, that means he carries a pretty big stick in that locker room and has gravity to him. So, again, in the name of trying to establish a culture, I'm not trading him because I think he's one of the leaders of this team. So I'm not moving on. Now, KJ Osborne, I trade. Tyquan Thornton, I would trade. Dietrich Wise, if I could get something worthwhile, I would trade. There are guys I would trade. But I'm not trading Bourne. I'm not trading Godshaw. I'm not trading Jonathan Jones because I believe, at least for this season, they are a piece of the fabric. And they are some of the stronger voices and leaders in that room that have their focus on the right things. And this team is very young. So I want Jalen Polk. I want Javon Baker to be under the learning tree. I want Jaquelin Roy to be under the learning tree of Devon Godshaw. I want Alex Austin, Isaiah Bolden, even Marcus Jones. I want those guys under the learning tree of Jonathan Jones. Lead by example. Show them how to play. Show them how to approach the game. Show them how to be professional. Show them how to handle the media after a loss. Show them how to handle the media after a win. You need some of that. You can't just have a bunch of 23, 24-year-olds running around a locker room. That ain't going to work out. Could the Patriots actually buy at the deadline? Talk about that in a minute. Don't forget, you can do a few things to help out this podcast. If you're just jumping in, you can give us that like, click that thumbs up. Let's smack that YouTube algorithm in the face. So make sure that you click that thumbs up and like this podcast. Also throw a comment in. Do you agree with me? Would you trade Godshaw? Would you trade Kendrick Bourne? Would you trade Jonathan Jones? Or do you want to hold on to some of those guys because of the leadership quotient and because of trying to establish the culture? And some of those guys seem to be Mayo guys. I would say Kendrick Bourne is also a Gerard Mayo guy. So throw your comments in, like the podcast, and also sub. We're trying to get to 5,000 subscribers. We're about 250 away. So hit that subscribe button. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your fellow Patriots fans, tell everybody. You see somebody at the bar on Friday night, tell them. About the Nick Cattles podcast, Nick Cattles show, hit it up. Nick Cattles channel. All right, so could the Patriots actually buy at the deadline? It's an interesting question. Josina Anderson posted in the last 24 hours that the Patriots are monitoring the market, the trade market, to possibly add a defensive tackle, which, by the way, should tell you they're not going to trade Godshaw, because if they're looking to add a defensive tackle, why would they get rid of their best defensive tackle? And why would they get rid of one of the best run-stuffing defensive tackles in all of football this year? Doesn't make sense. Sounds like they're trying to add. They're trying to add a wide receiver, which, again, I would ask, would you really give up Kendrick Bourne if you're looking to add wide receiver? So they're looking at wide receiver. They're also looking at offensive tackle. We'll talk about the O-line and the tackle position in a little bit. I love the idea of buying. I love the idea of buying at the trade deadline. If the Patriots can acquire talent in the next 6 days that will help this team now and in the future, I am doing that. I am making a deal. Because the priority for Elliott Wolf and the priority for everybody is to improve this roster. It's not to try to get the best pick in 2025. We went through that game last year. It's about improving this roster. This roster needs more talent. And if somebody is out there that you think can help this team, again, now and in the future, then yes, you should be looking at deals. You should be calling teams. Now, I wouldn't give up too much if, dependent on the player. Most trades I'd be looking at giving up, a 4th round pick or later. I don't want to give up a ton of top 100 picks unless it's absolutely necessary, unless you have somebody that's worthwhile. Those moves have been made. Sweat last year, a lot of people will bring that move up. Chicago, they traded for Sweat last year, and they signed him to an extension. They kept him there, and now you got what you got, and he's helping the defense. So I wouldn't be, dying to give away top 3-round picks, top 100 picks. But if it's for the right player, I would. Because you know who that player is. You don't know what the pick's going to end up being. If you can trade for a player right now and you know he fits in your system, you can plug him in and he's going to be really good for this year, the next few years, then yes, you take that player because that player is a known commodity. As much as I love the draft and as much as we talk about picks, and again, picks can help and will help this team rebuild, you inevitably don't know if those picks are going to work out. So if you have the chance to bring somebody in that you know is going to work out, you've seen work out at the NFL level, and it makes sense for you from an age standpoint, contract standpoint, positional standpoint, then yes, you make a deal like that. You can go out and look at players who might not be fitting in their system right now. Coaching changes, right? Scheme changes. Guys who might have been productive the last couple of years, but they have new coaches and a new system and not as productive as this year, but you think that player can fit better for your system. That's the kind of deal you look at. Guys that you can extend, guys that are going to be free agents or at least franchise tagged. Somebody like T. Higgins. Now, Cincinnati continues to sell people on the idea that they're going to win, 10 games, get into the playoffs and make a run. But it's a big if, but if Cincinnati changes its mind and T. Higgins is available, that's somebody that I'm absolutely looking at. In his mid-20s, plays a position that you want and need, a legitimate X receiver on the boundary, somebody who has produced at the NFL level, somebody that you can sign because you have all the cap space in the world, $132 million of cap space for next offseason. If you can deal for T. Higgins and get him signed to a contract extension, now you're not desperate to go out there and find that receiver. You've answered one of your problems before you even get into the offseason, before you even touch free agency. So if somebody like T. Higgins is available, abso-freaking-lutely, I'm making a deal if it makes sense to me. And what would make sense? A third-round pick would make sense, one of your threes, maybe a third-round pick and a fifth-round pick, something along those lines. But yes, I think the Patriots should be looking at acquiring talent. They should be looking at trying to get better. Mark Daniels had 5 names in a column today. Here are some possibilities he threw out there. Azeez Ojulari, who is an edge rusher for the Giants. The Giants already have Dexter Lawrence. They traded for Brian Burns during last offseason, so Ojulari might be available. Evan Neal, also with the Giants, a tackle. He was taken near the top of the draft a few years back. Hasn't worked out, but, former top pick, has talent. Bring him in as a flyer, and you probably don't have to give up a lot for him because he's pretty much buried on the depth chart, but he's somebody you might be able to bring in and work with. How about this name? I love this idea. How about Jacoby Myers? Raiders, are they willing to deal Myers? Looks like the Raiders are going nowhere. Could you trade for Jacoby Myers? Could you trade the Raiders KJ Osborne in a 6th-round pick or whatever for Jacoby Myers in a 7th, something like that? Jacoby Myers comes in, he's immediately, one of the good leaders in the room. Now, you could say, if you believe in Jalen Polk is supposed to be Jacoby Myers eventually. But Myers would help. Demario Davis, linebacker with the Saints. Tre'Davious White, cornerback with the Rams. So some names that could be out there for the Patriots. But I would absolutely be looking at acquiring talent if I were Elliott Wolf. No doubt about it. Because that's precisely what you should be doing and supposed to be doing as a GM, as a leader of player personnel. All right, let's wrap things up with the offensive line. When we look at pressure rate and we look at what the Patriots had gone through earlier in the season, there are a few things here to say. Number one, some of the pressure rate numbers were inflated because of Jacoby Brissett. He holds on to the football forever. The time to throw numbers told us that. I'm not saying that the offensive line was great. They were far from it. But Jacoby Brissett certainly did not help the offensive line as he was the starting quarterback for this team. He hurt them in their pressure numbers. There's no doubt about that. And it got worse as time went on. Drake Maye helps the pass protection, right? His mobility, he makes anticipatory throws. He's got that gunslinger mentality. He's not afraid to let it rip. So Maye is a little bit quicker and more willing to get rid of the football. And mobility-wise, he can move around the pocket and help those pressure rate numbers. Maye could also, though, hurt the pass protection at times. And we've seen that. Sometimes he takes sacks that he doesn't need to take because, he didn't read something the right way. Sometimes he messes up the protection. We saw that week 1. He messed up where to line JaMychal Hasty, and that resulted in a sack. So sometimes Drake Maye will actually hurt the offensive line pass protection. Doesn't happen nearly as often as Jacoby Brissett, but there are those moments. Overall, though, Maye is a plus for this offensive line. No doubt, don't get it twisted. But when you look at the offensive line pass pro numbers, pressure rate numbers, week 7, the pressure rate was 38%. Remember, the beginning of the year, we're talking about an offensive line that had a pressure rate of more than 50 freaking percent on multiple occasions, which is ridiculous. 38% pressure rate back in week 7. Against the Jets, and this was with Brissett playing 3 quarters, against the Jets this past weekend, 30.8% was the pressure rate. That is significantly better. Significantly better. Now, Vederian Lowe was not spotted at practice today. We're going to have to wait for the injury report to see what's up. It might be an illness. It might be a personal reason. So I'm not going to jump to conclusions. Didn't seem like he got hurt on Sunday. So hopefully it's just an illness. Hopefully he'll be back. But Vederian Lowe was not spotted at the media portion of practice today. However, let's talk about Vederian Lowe. I am going to give you numbers. I'm not going to give you my personal opinion. What I'm going to give you are facts, okay? So let's be factual about this. After the first quarter of the season, I tweeted out Vederian Lowe, and you look at some of the, you look at some of the gradings for these rookie offensive tackles, and you look at some of the ratings, some of the free agent tackles that were signed. And after the first quarter of the season, I said, you know what? Everybody is clamoring for one of these young tackles. Those guys aren't playing well, but it's early, so we're going to give it time. So I thought, now that we've gone through 8 weeks, you're pretty much at the middle point of the season, I wanted to go back and look at pass protection grades, pass blocking grades from Pro Football Focus and see how these guys stack up. So I'm just going to give you the facts. Vederian Lowe's pass protection grade from Pro Football Focus is 72.6. That is 40th out of all NFL tackles. You say 40th, oh my God. If you think about it, you got 2 tackles a team, so you got 64 starting tackles in the NFL. Vederian Lowe's pass protection grade puts him at 40 out of those 64. Is it great? It's not great. You'd obviously want somebody in the top 20, but he's ranked 40th. He's played 255 snaps. So let's look at some of the other names that people have brought up, right? The second round offensive tackles. The idea of moving up into the draft from the 3rd round to the 2nd round, which would have cost you Caden Wallace and probably Javon Baker, those 2 picks. You would have traded Wallace and Baker to move up into the 2nd round to draft one of those offensive tackles. So let's look. Lowe's pass protection grade is 72.6. Remember that number. Patrick Paul, the first offensive tackle taken in the 2nd round, his pass pro grade is under 64. He's only played 62 snaps this year. Blake Fisher was the next tackle taken. His pass block grade is awful. It's 34. He's played 106 snaps this year. Roger Rosengarten from Washington, he has 361 snaps for the Ravens this year. His pass block grade is 58.4, well below Lowe's. Kingsley Suamataia, the guy that I was hoping the Patriots would draft in the 2nd round. He's played 114 snaps, and his pass block grade is just above 42, which is more than 30 points behind Vederian Lowe. So those second-round offensive tackles, none of those guys have played at Vederian Lowe's level. None of them, outside of Roger Rosengarten, has played anywhere near the amount of snaps that Vederian Lowe has. Vederian's played 255 snaps. Rosengarten's played 361. The most after that is Suamata'i at 114, and he was benched after week 2. So none of those second-round offensive tackles, as of right now, have played better in pass protection than Vederian Lowe. Brendan Coleman, how's he done? He was the third-round offensive tackle taken ahead of Caden Wallace. Brendan Coleman's pass block grade is 53. Again, almost 20 points lower than Vederian Lowe's. Coleman's played 177 snaps compared to Lowe's 255. How about Tyler Guyton? Because we heard that the Patriots, Tyler Guyton himself, told the Dallas media that the Patriots tried to trade up to draft him late in the first round. Tyler Guyton, his pass block grade is 53.7. Again, almost 20 points lower than Vederian Lowe. He's played 354 snaps. So even the first-round tackle late in the round has not played as well as Vederian Lowe. How about Tyron Smith? Everybody's favorite free agent name, Tyron Smith. Tyron Smith has played practically double, almost double the snaps, 509 snaps compared to Lowe's 255. Tyron Smith's pass block grade is 68.4, which is below, more than 4 points below Vederian Lowe. So Pro Football Focus is telling us that Vederian Lowe, when it comes to pass protection, he has been better than every single tackle that was taken in the second round, the last tackle taken in the first round, the tackle that was taken before Caden Wallace, and also the best free agent left tackle in Tyron Smith. Again, this is not opinion. This is factual from Pro Football Focus. Vederian Lowe has outplayed all of those guys in protecting the quarterback this year. Every single one of them. There's not one guy on that list I just gave you that has graded out better than Vederian Lowe. Let's also remember this. Even if these offensive tackles pick up their play the next 10 weeks, let's say one of these guys ends up being really good, let's not forget that most of them had the luxury of sitting and developing, which would not have been the case in New England. They would have been thrown in the fire. So, for example, my guy, Suamata'i, again, he was benched after 2 weeks by Kansas City. Now, what would happen if you ended up playing him here and he was as bad here as he was in Kansas City, or maybe even worse because he has Brissett as a quarterback instead of Mahomes, and Mahomes certainly helps some pressure rate because of his mobility. Imagine if Suamata'i got off to the bad start here in New England. He would have been benched, and who knows if he would have ever touched the field again this season. So we also have to remember that these guys, a lot of these guys are getting time to develop, which tells you what? They weren't ready to start day one. Right? Patrick Paul, 62 snaps. Blake Fisher, 106 snaps. Rosengarten is the closest to being that guy at 361 out of that second round class. Suamata'i, talked about him. Brendan Coleman, 177 snaps. Tyler Guyton for the Cowboys, because he was a first-round pick, was thrown into the fire, and he has stayed in the fire, and he has not done very well in pass protection. So those are facts. Whether you like them or don't, it doesn't matter. What I just told you was factual. It's the truth. It's the reality. I know some people look at Vederian Lowe and they think about last year. They think about some of his worst reps. They think about the really difficult position he was put in week 1 against Trey Hendrickson when he only practiced once or twice and had to go against one of the best pass rushers in football, and he gave up some pressures. And I think what's happening here is perception is overtaking reality. Realistically, Vederian Lowe has pass protected better than all of the names that people have brought up. Fact. So that's the reality. And I remember saying this, and this is no guarantee. This could fall apart. Again, we're only halfway through the season. Vederian Lowe might just completely fall off a cliff. And at that time, we will evaluate everybody. We will look back and we will say, this is what Vederian Lowe did this year with this many snaps, and this is how he stacked up against all the other guys that they could have had. Right? We will do that. I will do that. I'm only telling you as of right now what's happened. As of right now, Vederian Lowe has outperformed all of those other cats. Could certainly go bad. Could certainly go bad. But I remember the beginning of the year, and I was one of the only people out there in the Boston media saying, give it time. People were losing their minds. Losing their minds, right? Elliott Wolf needs to go. He didn't bring in enough guys. He didn't do that. I said, give it time. Are they healthy? You know, when you're playing with an offensive line that has the fourth left tackle, the third guard, the third left guard, the third right guard, the backup center who's actually a guard that you signed to play guard, but he got thrown in at center because Jake Andrews got injured, and you're forced to put Owenu at right tackle when you feel like he's actually a guard, and then, you know, Chooks leaves the team, and then Caden Wallace gets hurt. Let's see if they can get healthy, because if you can get healthy, then you gain continuity. We saw this with last year's offensive line. Last year's offensive line was a dumpster fire the first month and a half. They couldn't get out of their own way, but then they found continuity. They found chemistry up front, and people said, oh, Nick, you're making excuses. I said, I'm not making excuses. I'm giving you reasons. And so now here we are right now, midpoint of the season. The offensive line is playing better. Vederian Lowe has outperformed all of those other guys that were taken in the second round. He's outperforming Brandon Coleman, who was taken right ahead of Caden Wallace. He's outperforming Tyron Smith in pass protection. That's what I can tell you right now. Is it going to continue? I don't know. I don't know. But I think a lot of people are crapping on Vederian Lowe without actually looking at the numbers. And I get that, because the offensive line, it's a lot about context, right? And people aren't going to watch football to sit there and study the offensive line. I get it. But I would say this. If you're not looking at the numbers and you're not paying attention to the offensive line, then you probably should pass on having an opinion on the offensive line. If we're watching it, it's a dumpster fire. We all know it's a dumpster fire. But breaking down individual guys, if you're not, if you're not focused on certain things and you're not looking at these numbers and you're not comparing these numbers to the other people that are brought up, then all you're doing is just disingenuously throwing gasoline on the fire. So I am here to try to put the fire out, or at least take the gasoline away from some people. Because the reality of the situation is Vederian Lowe's pass protection has been pretty damn good. And it's been much better than the other options you had in April. And I'm just giving you the factual numbers, the grades. That's all I'm doing. So hopefully Vederian Lowe continues to play like this. And hopefully the offensive line can stay healthy. Hopefully Vederian Lowe missed practice today because he has an illness and he's back out there on Sunday. And will there be ups and downs? Yeah, because I don't think Vederian Lowe is a top-tier left tackle. That's not what I'm telling you. I'm just telling you that he's been better in pass protection than those names I gave you. So there will be ups and downs. But this offensive line has played better, and Vederian Lowe's been good versus those other guys. That's the truth. As we get ready for week 9. Not sure if it'll be the truth by week 15, but that's what I'm telling you right now. So I hope you enjoyed that. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to this channel. Help us beat that YouTube algorithm. It means so much to me. I have an NFL podcast on Thursday nights. Yes, that's tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern. And we go over 5 of the top storylines in the NFL while I drink a craft beer and you drink a beverage of your choice. Again, that's tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern. I appreciate every single one of you who have joined me today. Hopefully you have subscribed to this channel. We'll be back on Friday at 3 p.m. for a Titans-Patriots preview. Until then, be well. This has been the Nick Cattle Show.